Hey, Charles Hoffman here from Plugin Alliance. Today we're looking at the BX Console AMEK 200 by Brainworx. This is a transparent, precise, and detailed console plugin. It integrates the circuitry of popular plugins like the AMEK EQ 200, AMEK Mastering Compressor, and the expander and gate of the BX Console AMEK 9099. I'm going to walk you through all of this plugin's features, but first, make sure to start a free Mega Bundle trial. This will give you access to every Plugin Alliance product for 30 days, including the BX Console AMEK 200. Let's start by taking a listen to some audio examples. This plugin is full of mixing and mastering features, so you can use it on a wide range of sources.
Stop it. Your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but I love you. So I'm gonna OD on your body. I can't let nobody have it all.
I see them dancing in obsidian. Have your cake and eat it like a Gideon. I pity son. Elvin Wolf howl at the moon for the Valinor. Mithril 4 pound at the waist. Nickel avatar. Minded of the great from the ghost call on Shalimar. Salamanca almost got the ghost of Gus Azukar. Sweet, sweet back. Badass song at the salad bar. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson. You already.
All of the AMEK plugins that I previously mentioned are based on popular hardware, but it would be nearly impossible to combine that hardware in real life. The complexities of physically integrating the circuits are the first issue, and the cost of the components would make the console so expensive that almost nobody would be able to afford it. You need to multiply the number of components required for one channel by the number of channels that the console has, which can quickly add up. In a plugin format, these factors aren't an issue. Once you get your hands on the hardware units that you want to model, you can create digital versions of the circuits and easily modify and integrate them. You can also apply processing to as many channels as your CPU can handle. I recommend adding the BX Console AMEK 200 to the default audio and MIDI track presets in your DAW. This will recreate the experience of working with a hardware console where each audio signal is running through one of the console's channel strips. You can use this plugin to mix individual tracks, groups, and your stereo bus. It includes a filter module, an expander and gate, a compressor, a limiter, a VCA Clipper, and a 5-band EQ. There's built-in total harmonic distortion, V-gain, and tolerance modeling technology. A number of meters provide a look at input levels, output levels, and gain reduction. Brainworx has included their mono maker and stereo width knobs too. Finally, there's a number of global parameters that provide even more control. The detail and transparency that the BX Console AMEK 200 provides make it a phenomenal option for mastering as well. Since this plugin can perform so many different mixing and mastering tasks, you don't need to use too many other plugins. You might have pitch correction on a few vocals and some creative effects like reverb and delay set up on aux tracks, but the BX Console AMEK 200 can handle the rest, and it's a great plugin to streamline your workflow. If you want to take it a step further, you can map certain parameters within the plugin to knobs, sliders, and buttons on a MIDI controller. This can add that tactile experience that's similar to working with a hardware console. Now let's get into the details. The default signal flow moves top to bottom, left to right, which means we'll start with the filter module. There's a high-pass filter and low-pass filter, ranging from 20 to 20,000 Hz and 20 to 30,000 Hz. You can also toggle these filters on and off individually. It's possible to reposition the filter module within the plugin. In filters the signal on the way into the plugin at the beginning of the processing chain. Post inserts the filter module between the compressor and limiter, while SC applies the module to the beginning of the sidechain circuit. For example, you may want the compressor to respond less aggressively to low-end transients. Selecting sidechain and cutting away some low-end will remove low-end content from the sidechain signal, causing the compressor to ignore it. The gate/expander module uses the same circuit found in the BX console AMEK 9099. An expander applies downward expansion, reducing the level of audio below its threshold. You can punch this module in and out of the signal chain by clicking this button. The threshold knob sets the level at which gain reduction occurs. Signal that's quieter than the threshold level will be reduced in level, and you can see the amount of gain reduction applied on this meter. Signal that's louder than the threshold level will be unaffected. This -30 button shifts the threshold values down by 30 decibels. For example, -18 will become -48. This is useful for low-level signals that are too quiet to surpass the expander's threshold normally. The ratio knob controls the intensity of the gain reduction applied when the signal drops below the threshold. At a ratio of 1:1, no gain reduction is applied, while a value of 4:1 will apply the most aggressive form of gain reduction. The signal will get quieter, but not result in complete silence. The range knob controls the maximum amount of gain reduction that can be applied. At 100, it will result in the most gain reduction. Setting the knob to 0 will deactivate the gain reduction applied, and in between values will dial back the maximum amount of allowable gain reduction. The attack setting affects the way in which the expander responds to peaks in your audio signal. Fast will preserve transient material, making it best suited for processing drums. Slow causes the expander to round off transients, leading to a smoother sound. Medium strikes a balance between the two. The release knob controls how quickly the module's VCA reduces in level. With a short release time, the signal will die out quickly, and with a long release time, this will happen more gradually. An exponential release curve is used by default, meaning that the level decreases the fastest the moment it drops below the threshold. Over time, the level will continue to decrease, but with less intensity. This form of processing sounds quite natural, but you also have the option to activate a linear release mode that maintains the intensity of gain reduction applied over time. The INV button inverts the portion of the signal that you hear. You'll hear the audio between peaks in the signal, while the transients are reduced in level. When this EXP or expander button is lit, it means that the expander is activated. This knob will also appear gray and say ratio in expansion mode. When you click on the expander button, the ratio knob will turn orange and label itself hold, indicating that the module is now operating in gate mode. A gate reduces the level of signals below its threshold level, similar to an expander but not quite the same. Typically, you use a gate to reduce or completely remove background noise. The hold knob determines the minimum amount of time the gate must remain open when the signal breaches the threshold. For quick stuttery effects, you can use a short hold value. If you want a smoother gated effect, where the gate stays open for 1 second or longer, you should use a larger hold time. An expander won't completely mute your signal, while a gate can. The second big difference is that since a gate provides a hold parameter, you can force it to remain open and allow quiet material through. While an expander can sound more natural, you don't have the ability to prevent it from applying gain reduction like you do with a gate. The section at the bottom allows you to filter the gate or expander module's sidechain input. When a signal enters the plugin, the signal that you hear passes through the gate or expander, has some processing applied, and then passes to the plugin's output. A duplicate version of the signal runs through a second path called a sidechain circuit, where you have the ability to filter the signal. This is the signal that the gate or expander responds to. For example, you can make the gate and expander less responsive to low-end transients by cutting away the lows. Or you could do something similar with high-frequency content by cutting away the highs. The Listen button lets you audition the audio running through the sidechain circuit so you can hear what the gate or expander is responding to. These high Q buttons change the Q value of the filters, pronouncing frequencies near the cutoff. If you want the gate to respond to the punch of a kick around 100 to 200 Hz, but not respond to the kick's subfrequencies, you might want to use the high Q feature. This will exaggerate the punch, but filter out the deep lows. If you don't use high Q mode, you might end up rolling off the punchiness, and the final result won't sound as tight. The compressor module lets you tame transients. As you turn up the threshold knob, the compressor's threshold level reduces. Peaks in the signal that breach the threshold will have gain reduction applied to them. Turning up the ratio knob increases the intensity of the gain reduction applied. With a setting of 1.1, you're not going to hear very much gain reduction. As you turn the knob up, the signal will get hit with progressively more gain reduction that you can see on this gain reduction meter.
I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it. I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it.
It's also worth mentioning that all of these settings from 1.1 to infinity use a hard knee. You can select a soft knee by turning the ratio knob completely counterclockwise. In this mode, the ratio becomes dependent on the input level, increasing as the signal gets louder. Generally, it's going to float around a ratio of 3 to 1, but might jump up to around 6 to 1 when processing transients. With the threshold cranked up, you might be able to compress transients using a ratio of up to 10 to 1. In soft knee mode, you can apply extremely heavy compression that still sounds musical and responsive.
I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it. I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it.
The timing knob replaces the attack and release controls that you're probably familiar with if you've used other compressors. On a technical level, this knob controls the length of the RMS detector's averaging window.
I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it. I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it.
The ambience button routes the difference between the dry and compressed signal to the plugin's output. You can use this to solo the portion of the uncompressed version of the signal affected by compression. For example, if you're processing a snare drum and just hitting the very peak of that snare with compression, the ambience button will solo that peak without compression applied. This makeup knob is simply a gain control. You can use it to level match the signal entering the compressor so that you can make level matched A/B comparisons when you bypass the compressor module. There's also a mix control that allows you to apply parallel compression. It controls the blend between the dry, unprocessed signal entering the compressor and the wet, compressed version of the signal. A popular mixing technique involves parallel compressing drums. You'll hit your drums with a ton of heavy compression and then dial back the mix knob. You end up with a nice blend of the punchy transients from the dry signal and the full body of the compressed signal. At the bottom of the compressor module, there's a gain change meter. This is not a gain reduction meter. It takes into account makeup gain as well, so if the light on this meter is floating around 0, it's a good indication that the level of the signal entering the compressor is similar to the level of the signal leaving the compressor. When you punch the compressor module in and out, you should have a decent level match, allowing you to focus on the tonal effects of the compression applied rather than changes in loudness. The limiter module acts like an aggressive compressor. You can use it to prevent occasional peaks from jumping out of your mix that might be too intense for the compressor module to control on its own. When the individual tracks of an instrument bus sum together, the energy of transients can build up and jump out of the mix. Gently limiting your instrument buses is a great way to deal with this. I especially like doing this to my drum bus and vocal bus. Turning up the threshold knob reduces the threshold level, and toggling the ambience button on makes targeting transients even easier. Since the limiter applies compression to the signal, reducing its level, you'll probably want to boost it back up using makeup gain. There's also a mix knob that you can use to apply parallel limiting. This can lead to more intense forms of parallel compression that can help make your drums sound beefier or thicken up vocals. The VCA Clipper Module behaves very much like the Brainworx BX Clipper. It's a diode clipper, but with its own unique circuit. Digital clipping can sound undesirable, but soft clipping algorithms based on hardware can pleasantly saturate your audio, sounding thick and rich. The headroom knob acts like a ceiling parameter, but it also changes the character of the clipping applied. If you turn it counterclockwise, you'll overdrive the VCA, leading to a range of soft to hard clipping effects. At 0, the VCA clipper demonstrates the same soft clipping behavior as the hardware it's modeled after. The clipper can also help you increase the loudness of your music. At the very bottom, there are two sidechain controls. The sidechain link button causes the gate, expander, compressor, and limiter to apply an equal amount of gain reduction to both the left and right channels of a stereo signal. For example, if there's a peak in the left channel that causes the compressor to apply 3 decibels of gain reduction, that gain reduction will also be applied to the right channel. This can help preserve the stereo image and prevent sounds from pulling left or right, but it may introduce pumping effects, so just be careful of that. I recommend keeping sidechain link enabled for most mastering purposes. When mixing individual instruments, you can experiment with deactivating sidechain link. If you want to route an external signal into the sidechain circuit rather than an internal signal, you can do that using the external sidechain button. A common use case for this involves applying the BX Console AMEK 200 to a bass track and then routing a kick track into the plugin's sidechain input. When you listen to the sidechain signal, you'll hear the kick playing. Now you can compress your bass every time the kick plays, ducking the bass out of the way, making more room for the kick. In the center of the UI, there's a 5-band parametric EQ that allows you to shape the tone of your recordings. It includes a high, high-mid, mid, low-mid, and low filter. Each band includes a frequency selection knob, a gain control, and a bandwidth knob. You'll also notice that most of the bands allow you to switch from a bell filter to a shelf filter if you turn the bandwidth knob fully counterclockwise.
Your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but
The hardware that this EQ is based on has a very transparent sound and was heavily used for mastering in the 80s. The bandwidths can be adjusted from very wide and musical to quite narrow, so there's a lot of flexibility. You can bypass bands individually, or you can bypass the entire EQ by clicking the EQ In button. Auto-listen is a really cool feature because it solos the frequency range of the knob that you turn. This applies to the frequency selection knobs and the bandwidth knobs.
your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but
The invert switch mirrors the gain applied to each band. If you apply a 15 decibel boost, it will become a 15 decibel cut.
your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but
You can also scale the gain applied to each band using the gain scale knob. Turning the knob up will exaggerate the gain applied, while turning it down will reduce the gain applied.
your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but
There's an option to insert the EQ at one of 3 different points in the plugin's signal path. The default position, post, inserts the EQ immediately after the compressor, before the limiter. When set to pre, it's inserted after the filter module in its default position, before the gate and expander. In sidechain mode, the EQ is inserted at the beginning of the sidechain circuit before the filter module, assuming it's also been inserted into the sidechain circuit. To simplify this, you can apply the EQ pre-dynamics, post-dynamics, or use it to shape the signal running through the plugin's sidechain circuit. Total harmonic distortion, or THD, adds colorful saturation and density within the EQ module, regardless of its position in the signal chain. Every piece of analog hardware introduces some level of harmonic content to the audio signal running through it. This is one component that leads to the analog sound of hardware. You can adjust this characteristic by turning the THD knob. Higher values will add more saturation to your signal. Overall, the effect is quite subtle and most noticeable on dynamic audio content like uncompressed or gently compressed vocals.
can we hold on to the moment and just never let it go? Can we hold on to the moment and just never
V-gain adds low-level noise to your audio, simulating the noise that's naturally introduced to a signal by analog gear. You'll be able to see this noise appear on the meters in your DAW, and hear it if you turn up your monitors. Noise is intentionally added to tracks in genres like lo-fi, giving it a vintage vibe, while it can also help push vocals and instruments to the front of your mix in a way that's subtle. Tolerance modeling technology, or TMT, mimics the component tolerances found in real analog hardware. This technology captures the subtle variations and nuances that make analog gear so appealing, such as subtle stereo enhancement. Each track processed with the BX Console AMEK 200 demonstrates unique characteristics exactly like the individual channels on an analog console. Many engineers who work with analog consoles have a favorite channel for vocals, a favorite pair of channels for drums, and so on. They might like the way that channel 3 subtly boosts the top end of vocals around 5 kHz, while the differences between channels 11 and 12 make the mid-range of their drums sound big and wide. You can cycle through these TMT channels to find a pair that you like, but there's an easier way to make the most of this feature. You can click the Random Channel All button, and every instance of the plugin in your session will have its TMT channels randomized. If you've applied the plugin to all your tracks, your mix will sound like it's running through a real analog console. There are 72 individual TMT channels to choose from, and 36 pairs. As long as you haven't applied the plugin to more than 36 tracks in analog mode, each channel will sound unique when you randomize the TMT channels. If you want to randomize the TMT channels applied to a single track, you can click the Random Channel 1 button. If maintaining the balance between the left and right channels of a stereo track is important to you, choose Digital as the stereo mode. This will assign the same TMT channel to the left and right channels, removing any differences between them. You might want to do this if you're processing a dual mono track like a lead guitar. The mastering version of the hardware that the EQ module is based on uses channels that are matched extremely closely. Digital mode will give you the same type of mastering grade sound. Another benefit of using digital mode is that you can load 72 unique instances of the plugin rather than 36 in analog mode. The meters section includes a VU meter and dBu meter. You can toggle the meters between showing input and output levels. If you overload the meters, you'll see an overload warning. Below that, there are the gain reduction meters for the gate, compressor, and limiter side by side. Similar to analog gear, you'll start to hear gain reduction applied a little sooner than indicated on the meters, so use these as a guide rather than fully relying on them. Brainworx has also included mono maker and stereo width knobs. The mono maker sums all frequency content at and below the selected frequency into mono. This can help center the kick and bass in stereo recordings, improving low-end focus, reducing phase issues, and potentially increasing headroom.
I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it. Your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but I love it. So I'm gonna OD on your body. I can't let nobody have it all.
The stereo width knob can make your audio narrower or wider than it was originally. Stereo widening effects can often lead to a weak center image that lacks impact, but that's not the case here. This knob is specifically designed to maintain the center of your image and ensure mono compatibility.
I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it. Your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but I love it. So I'm gonna OD on your body. I can't let nobody have it all. I can see right through your act, but I'm still gonna dive in, cause you're looking like a diva.
On the right side of the plugin, there's an input gain knob and phase inversion switch that can help you phase align snare drum recordings. It's quite common to mic the top and bottom of a snare drum and then invert the phase of the bottom microphone in your DAW to ensure phase alignment. There's a mute button that silences the plugin's output. You also have a left-right pan control and an output gain fader. Up at the top, you can undo and redo changes made to the plugin parameters. There are 4 plugin views labeled A, B, C, and D. After changing the settings in one view, you can switch to another view to try out different settings and then toggle between them. It's also possible to copy the settings from one view and paste them to another. If your settings get away from you and you want to start fresh, you can click Reset to return all the settings of the current view to their default value. THD All and VGain All affect the THD and VGain of every instance of the plugin in your session. You'll get a warning that tells you this when you adjust one of these features. If you're comfortable with this, you can click Don't Show Me This Warning again, and then OK to avoid this warning in the future. Another unique Brainworx feature is the ability to solo the middle of your stereo image, separate from the sides.
I shouldn't let this happen, but I ain't even gonna stop it. Your love is so toxic. When we make love, I'm infused with your poison, but I love you. So
There's a hidden window that you can view by clicking on the AMEK or Brainworx text at the bottom of the interface. It displays the names of the people who developed the plugin, so big shout out to them. There's also a meter adjustments section that allows you to calibrate the ppm and VU meter references. For most people, the default values should work fine, but feel free to adjust these depending on the needs of your project. To demo the Brainworx BX Console AMEK 200, start a free Mega Bundle trial using the link below. This will give you access to all of Plugin Alliance's products for 30 days. If this video helped you out, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the Plugin Alliance YouTube channel for more plugin walkthroughs like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.